Welcome to today's episode, everyone. We've got a very exciting guest for you guys. For those of you just joining the podcast, we're E.N.G Media, and we specialize in helping software and technology companies scale their revenue. So if you want to learn how to take your software or tech business to the next level, make sure to stick around. And if you're interested in a free growth consultation, just drop us the word growth in the DMs. Without further ado, Noah, thank you so much for being a guest on our podcast today. It's been a long time coming, really excited to dive into RHO's impacts, solutions, what you guys are doing. And so appreciate you coming on today.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Tyson. And we're psyched to talk about Rho Impact, the field, and what it means for all of us out there fighting the good fight on climate change.
Absolutely. So maybe we start there. Maybe we start off by telling us a little bit about what RHO Impact is and kind of what your role looks like in the day to day.
Absolutely. So first, Tyson, I'll just correct this shortly. It's just Rho Impact.
Gotcha.
And Rho is the data science term that loosely refers to the interconnectedness between underlying data and variables. So it's kind of like connecting the dots on impact is the way that, we like to think about it.
Gotcha.
And we have been essentially obsessed with answering one fundamental question. What will the impact be if this climate solution scales? So really simple question, but a question that people across the climate ecosystem, from policymakers to investors to governments to enterprise buyers, are trying to answer. How effective is this thing going to be at scale in the future as it relates to climate?
Okay.
So that's the fundamental question we're answering through the application of data science, software engineering, in decades of boots on the ground practitioner experience.
Wow. I gotcha. So you guys are really trying to solve for those, those ESG issues that are going to have the largest impact over the long run and are kind of worth the time that it would take to solve them, essentially.
Yeah. What we're trying to essentially do is make sure that the best solutions to the fundamental, existential challenge of our time, right, of our generation, that we have better data and insight into, are these things going to be as effective as we think, and what combination of solutions are needed to actually hit a net zero future or net zero decarbonized industry.
Right. I gotcha. And is there, I guess, so is the decarbonized industry really mainly like where you guys work, or are you working with maybe any kind of partners or clients across any other industries?
Yeah, so I'll take it one step back. So we're working really with solution providers and investors that are trying to scale solutions to each industry's decarbonization challenges. So we have folks that are working on everything from software, IoT, of everything from carbon capture and storage all the way to the two-person band making renewable energy out of mud and bubblegum that nobody's ever heard of yet. Yeah. So everyone across the kind of climate ecosystem, because everybody, back to that question, everybody's trying to figure out, where do we allocate our funds? Where do we put our time? Where do we put our energy?
Right.
To essentially reduce the biggest risks of climate change in the future. And that's a question that has not been easily understood nor solved up till this point, but it really is the fundamental question needed to be answered.
100%. Yeah, I could totally see that being the case. And, being that you guys have like a software as well, and you have other resources, a really good use case, I think, of what Rho does was on your guys' website. And it was the Granova, case study, where I believe that they had partnered with you guys to develop a sustainability impact calculator. And so can you maybe speak a little bit to like what some of the tools that you guys use and that are available for you to help these solution providers actually, make that impact and be more sustainable?
Yeah, so the work with Granova is a great example of the commercial implications for getting this question right.
No.
So ultimately, what we were doing with them was providing third-party verification on what is the anticipated impact going to be if a customer deploys their solution across their operations, and what are the anticipated emissions impact that would be delivered over time and over a certain scale.
Gotcha.
So to essentially get to, the more product sales, the better emission reduction potential we are able to achieve.
Nice.
So that was a great example of essentially bridging the commercial and climate impact question with
Mhm.
the more climate impact you have on these buyer emissions, on these industry level emissions, the
Mhm.
more commercial opportunity you're going to have
Ah,
as we start transitioning to a net zero economy.
right.
And that's exactly what they did, and they really I love the folks at Grenova because they walked the walk and doubled down on this is everything that we are going to do to go to market because we have such an impact on this challenging source of emissions for the pharmaceutical life
Uh,
sciences world.
100%. Yeah. And when it comes to like, net zero initiatives, do you see like that kind of picking up and becoming more of a bigger deal, like as time goes on, essentially? Like, would you say that that's something that's increasing for like, as far as like the companies you're talking to, the investors and in that kind of space?
Well, we're certainly in a weird time, Tyson, in that because of geopolitics right now, where there was a lot of progress in the U.S. towards federal climate regulations under the Biden administration.
Uh-huh.
Trump comes in, essentially derails all of that progress.
Uh,
But now you have state level initiatives that are picking up the slack. For example, in New York, in California, New Jersey, Washington, Colorado.
mhm.
So you're starting to see everyone needing to answer the question of how are we going to hit these commitments that we have to hit to avoid catastrophic outcomes like the LA wildfires and the
Right.
Maui fires and the flooding that we seem to see on the news every day.
Hmm.
um, so so yes and no, we're seeing
Yeah.
everybody doubling down. The commitments are changing, the words are changing. People
Hmm.
used to call we're an ESG investment shop. Now we're an energy transition investment shop.
Uh,
So same focus, different messaging because of the kind of geopolitics, branding issues out there around
sure.
climate change today. But ultimately, the numbers don't lie. I mean, the damages have been so bad that I think in some shape or form, every single entity is becoming more and more aware of the material risk and
100%.
opportunity of all of this, all these climate change risks manifesting.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think you guys are solving for a huge problem. And kind of like you mentioned with the fires in California and a lot of the flooding that is going on, I think it's highly important for, companies to look to be more compliant into the future. Because it, obviously, or there's the consequences that kind of come from that. Kind of transitioning as well, like for, because coming from like a marketing background, I'm always curious to know, how are you guys getting in front of your like the ideal partners that you want to work with? Like, how are they finding out that like Rho exists and kind of interacting with you guys? Do you guys have any type of marketing processes in place, I guess, or is it mainly just a strong network and relationship building in the industry?
Yeah, great question. We made early on the strategic decision at Row that we were going to really focus on field contributions and capacity building. So really making sure that the work that some folks may think is great that we do, that we are creating access and equity to that content, into those tools, into those insights.
Nice.
So, for example, we've been heavily involved with initiatives with Project Frame in Prime
Mm.
Coalition for Catalytic Capital, which is a big global network of impact investors that are trying to essentially, raise the bar on how do we think and measure and communicate these climate impacts in the future so we can make
Right.
better investment decisions today. So long path to a short house. We've been out there as key contributors to a lot of these standards and initiatives. So
Nice.
because of that work in the field, that credibility, that experience, the hard stripes that you earn through grinding it out
Yeah.
in these kind of big field building efforts, that's been really critical to getting in front of customers because we already have a
Hmm.
pretty publicly available digital paper trail of industry leadership and contributions to the broader field.
100%. I appreciate you sharing those insights. Very interesting. I don't think I've heard a software company take that approach to it, but I think it's one of the best ways to go about it because you guys are in the trenches, you guys are leading the initiatives, and I could really see how important it is to find a way to properly like position and package what you guys are solving for, because of like the geopolitical climate and really like continuing to show like why it's important and relating it back to like outcomes for the businesses that you work with and for the investors who are investing in a lot of these initiatives, right? And so that kind of leads me to my next question here is for Rho, what would you say are some goals in the next 12 months, related to growth, I guess? Like, are you guys looking to expand your team? Do you have any new initiatives that you guys are rolling out? Any cool projects? Anything like quantifiable, would you say?
For sure. So we have a series of big announcements coming out in terms of new partnerships, new initiatives that we're co-creating and collaborating with other kind of partners and colleagues in the field. And we are also starting to get more international traction in terms of we have a pretty international clientele, and
Mhm.
luckily, or strategically, and that folks are really excited about what our flagship product Koi can do because it is getting to the level of granularity needed for real money to be allocated to the real solutions needed at every level of society and across
Yeah.
industries. Because Tyson, at the end of the day, man,
Yeah.
if all of this information is locked up in 100 grand consulting projects with PwC and EY and McKinsey and the faceless folks of those, the big four, which
Right.
we love, they're our colleagues, our friends, and whatnot.
Mhm.
But if that's what it takes for people to be able to act on climate, we're all in big trouble.
Right.
So what we're really trying to do is democratize access to the kind of tools and information needed to act and act with confidence.
Yeah. 100%. No, I couldn't have said it better myself. When it comes to Koi, could you maybe just give us like a brief overview or kind of expand on like what that flagship product is for Rho?
For sure, for sure. So what Koi is an impact forecasting tool. So in climate solutions database, what does that mean?
Uh-huh.
What we're able to do with Koi is look at in the world of climate solutions where there's thousands, it's the wide world out there, right?
Yeah.
Technologies, products, services, process changes, nature-based solutions. You have the world of things that can be done on climate,
Hmm.
but there's no way to forecast what would the impact be in this industry by this year at the per unit level for
Gosh.
every product sold, for every dollar, of units sold. All
Uh-huh.
of that has a per unit impact, and that's what we're trying to aggregate so that everybody who is investing in,
Hmm.
selling, or creating policy for climate solutions
Yeah.
is able to really have a clear view of how good is this thing going to be in this context by this timeline.
Gotcha. Awesome. Super awesome. I think it relates back to you building awareness around like how you're tying in exactly what you guys do into how it'll help solve these company solutions down to like a unit based kind of approach to it, which is super awesome. So it really sounds like to me, you mentioned that your goals are, you guys are looking to expand a bit more internationally. You've got some new partnerships that you are rolling out. You're building awareness around Koi. I guess a question that I always like to ask on the podcast is, if we were hypothetically speaking, and you could wave a magic wand and solve one thing in the business right now that's maybe holding you back or kind of in the way of you guys reaching that goal, do you know kind of what that one thing would be?
I do, and I smile, Tyson, because I ask that question a lot as a consultant
Ah,
on top of the software. So I love the magic wand question.
yeah.
I would say, quite frankly, we need just more volume. I mean, at the
Huh.
end of the day, and when I mean volume, I mean more people getting into Koi, more people showing Koi, more
Yep.
people displaying the outcomes that they've achieved using Koi.
Hmm.
Because at the end of the day, we want everybody, I kind of said on the front end, but I'll reiterate it. We want everybody working on these problems to be able to have access to the auditable, traceable, transparent data needed to act and
Yep.
act credibly. And at the end of the day, if you don't have that confidence, right, nobody is going to act.
Uh,
Um,
So
so
just
that's, so that's, oh, sorry, buddy, go ahead.
no, no. I was just yeah. Sounds to me like just more volume, like more people being aware about exactly kind of what you guys are doing. And so, for
Well, Tyson, let me interrupt you because there's one last thing I want to mention that is
sure,
big that I should
please.
have started with. We are also about to put out a pretty premium freemium version out there. So
Hmm.
we want to reiterate our mission, which is really to create access and inclusion to this
Yeah.
information. So our big goal for growth is getting as many climate solutions, investors, policymakers, accelerators, even
Hmm.
if they're not buying the software, to just get them on there and to start thinking in these terms so that they're able to have a clear view of what they're doing, where they're trying to go in the future, so they can do that today and start building towards that.
Absolutely. And just so I understand, you guys are rolling out free access for people to be able to use Koi, is that or Rho?
Yes. Yeah, so we as Row are going to have in the next week or two,
Hmm.
a couple of weeks max, a free version of Koi that is about as supercharged as freemium tools can get out there from a
Nice.
breadth of usability and sort of commercial application immediately.
Yeah. Awesome. And so if people want to go look into getting free access to that, or maybe they watch this podcast as it's distributed throughout social media, what would be the best place for them to go, maybe outside of your guys' website, to maybe connect with you or connect with Ro?
Yeah, so Koi has a standalone website, koi.eco. Check it out. Also, I'm on LinkedIn. I'm always happy to hop on with folks that are interested in the space and the field, hopefully in, getting in the trenches together. So all the above.
Yep.
We're a hyper collaborative group, and teamwork makes the dream work. And, this,
Yeah.
this work is the ultimate team sport.
Love it. Collaboration over competition. That's what I always say.
That's
But
right.
I think anybody watching this, they can definitely tell that you're open to kind of having any conversations for people who are curious about Koi or all the new things that Ro is rolling out. And I'll be sure as well to include links in the description of this video to, the Koi standalone website by itself, but also all the other things that you guys are working on and as your profile as well. So I highly recommend that you guys do go check out Ro and all the awesome things that they're doing. But other than that, thank you so much again, Noah, for your time and for your insights today. And we'll catch you guys in the next video.
Thanks for having me, Tyson. Thanks, everybody.
Yep.